This is the aristocratic mansion, one of the places that will exist in my game. For now, this is only a base for what will exist in the future, but I already can tell you what secrets this place will hold. In the forgotten corridors of the structure, the more curious players can find a hidden room with a secret item. This is the petrified eye of Arabella. And this was Arabella. Arabella was one of the most important souls to arrive at the lands above the sea of fog. She was responsible for advancing most of the studies to discover a way to exit this world and understand more of what the meaning of the sublime is. She was always on the vanguard of new discoveries. Unfortunately, Arabella became mad during her studies when she found something in the sky that wasn't supposed to be found. Before her death, the scholar was able to extract her own eye as a testament of her discovery. Now, in the present time, the players that find this item and use it will be able to see what made Arabella mad when she looked at the sky. This is the inverted castle, the first level I will be building for my game. Welcome to the second devlog of my open world game. In the last video my project was like this, and now it's like this. I will show you what progress I made since the last video. After laying out the basic shapes for the terrain for a straight week, I felt like the map was already in a good foundation to start implementing more details and constructions. To start, I began to design the first areas for the game. In my last video, you could saw some hints of structures I was already designing at the distance. These are the blocking layouts of some ideas that I was already testing. The best developers in the market tend to only design the first areas of the game at the end of the development. The reason behind this is that when the developers are at the end of production process, they already mastered all the concepts and systems of the game and are way more familiar with the tools at their disposal. With this, they can craft better environments and levels. So, with that logic, the most ideal place to start developing for the game is a level that most players won't see, like a secret location. This was made in Dark Souls 1 in the painted world of Ariames. This location is a hidden place and can only be accessed by touching a painting. Inside this painting, we can notice that the developers made an entire new location with enemies, bosses, and lore. They also take the opportunity to explore ideas for the design and concepts for the difficulty of the game. If you take an overview look from this level, you can see that this basically is a testing ground to experiment with what the game would be in the final versions. Since this was the first level made for Dark Souls, From Software explored and evolved it while crafting this first design. I will follow this approach and first design the most hidden levels of my game. And the best place to start is the inverted castle, a secret construction where only the players equipped with the Eye of Arabella will be able to see. Despite this being a huge and beautiful level, I'm okay to make this a hidden location that probably less than 20% of the players will see. I like to sacrifice the accessibility to this place to give the fewer lucky explorers a more unique experience. First, I needed to experiment with the construction tools to create the blocking layout of the levels. A huge tip from professionals in level design is to start creating the level only with primary shapes. Only after the developer can feel the flow of the gameplay in the environment and judge if the placement of the shapes is in a good spot. I did that with the aristocratic mansion, the place where the players will find the Eye of Arabella. I will go back to this place in the future, but for now I'm happy with the design I got. Also, I want a secret boss fight and multiple combats to happen around this place. My game is not combat focused, and this will be one of the few places on the game where hostile enemies will inhabit. After daydreaming about the concepts for the aristocratic mansion, I got back on track and started designing the inverted castle. I wanted something unique and big to really put the feeling of fear and amazement in the player. I had an idea of a floating inverted castle last week and I kept it in mind until I started developing this place. By luck, I nailed what I wanted to create in the first try of the blocking layout. I'm not spoiling much about this place for now, but I can tell you more about the level structure. The player will arrive at the castle through a bridge stretching to the sky. At the entrance, you can already tell that this place is abandoned and the main door is collapsed. So the player will have to find his way inside by going around the castle and moving with care not to fall from the skies. Only after that, the player will find a small and hidden entrance to explore the insides of the castle. At the end, an elevator will make the player rise at the final location of that level. Also, right below the inverted castle there will be a destroyed tower in the middle of a crater. This tower was part of the castle beneath, but since the players will initially not see the castle, they will find this crater and wonder why this tower fell from the sky and where it is the rest of the structure. After that, I started adding more details and experimenting with multiple materials to lay out what designs I could follow for this place. I had ideas to make the castle translucent and with stars, but I couldn't add any good shaders to make this idea come out of the paper. So I chose to work with a more ancient look, with a crumbling structure and vegetation consuming the place from outside. Like the aristocratic mansion, I will not go further in the design of the castle. This is a task for later and will demand a lot of more time. In the future, I will export these levels to Blender and start shaping them with much more detail and textures. The next thing I thought about improving was the character. As I said in the last devlog, this little mage is just a placeholder. I wanted a new character that would fit in the world I'm crafting and has a uniqueness to his personality. I had some ideas in mind, so I started modeling some concepts and quickly found some interesting results. Now, modeling an animation is one of my weaknesses as a solo developer, but I always try my best. The model I came up with really makes me glad and I think it's fitting character for my game. This is one of the souls of the lands above the fall. I want to deviate from the most common depictions of souls in games, where they are just ghostly figures. Here I tried to make the character look like a shadow embedded with light. The character vaguely resembles a child, given the sensation of an inexperienced and curious figure. Also, around the body of the model are some small details that will give hints for the more curious lore hunters. After creating the character, it was time to start creating some placeholder animations. The result of the animations is not nearly acceptable for me, and I will work way more on them in the future. However, I made out primarily actions for the character and moved on to implement them on the game engine. I find it kind of funny to look at the character running all silly like that. This would be a good animation for a more cartoony game. But of course, in the design of my game this is not fitting, so this is an improvement that the character will need soon. Of all my journey in game development, I struggled to accept the idea of using assets in my games. For every project, I used a bunch of my spare time and effort to create models, textures, and animate characters. Recently, I accepted that using assets is a valid option if you know how to place them in convenient places. I learned that it's okay not to control every aspect of your project and use the creations of other people's too. It's not hard to find games that are asset flips with zero thoughts on the design and object placement. These are cases where the assets are a negative addition rather than a positive one. However, when assets are used with focus to reinforce the existing design, they highly increase the quality of the game. With that in mind, I thought what were the main aspects of the environment of my game and what assets could enhance that feeling. One of the main characters of my game is nature. Nature in my game is a result of everything that came before and everything that will happen next. The environment is an extension of the world and its events. Also, it's a branch from the god who abandoned this place. In multiple cultures, it's not hard to see the trophy of a god who created the lands from its own body. In my game, nature represents something similar. Fortunately, nature assets are something in abundance around Unity and Unreal stores. There are multiple high-fidelity models to use from it, and I decided to start using this one, that contains almost everything that I need to craft the natural part of the environment. After purchasing this asset, I stayed a few days learning the systems that were contained in the folders and how I could extract all the positive points for these models. I also used the demo scene that came with the folder as a guide for what I can achieve with these tools. I still didn't create entire forests for my game, just small locations to exemplify during the video, but my plan is to gradually increment more details in multiple areas, parallelly to other tasks in the environment. I learned after some projects that adding the big tools in your game is an important step to improve the speed and quality of development. When the game gets done, these tools will not be part of the build, but they surely are important to the development process. With that in mind, I implemented a developer console to easily implement commands to my game. With this, I can rapidly teleport to locations, add items to my inventory, and change my character health. These are some simple examples I added, but in the future I will increase the number of commands that will help me a lot during the project. Also, I added a director's camera view. With this camera, I can create more cinematic shots and use them in future devlogs and marketing materials. At last, I added these effects for the items that the player can find in the game. Every item in the game will work as a forgotten relic, so the player can be looked at as a sort of archaeologist finding ancient treasures. So I tried to create a visual effect that evoked this feeling of a great artifact, rather than a simple item found in the wild. I still thinking if I add a rarity system for the items, where more legendary relics would shine more and emit more particles. For now, every item has the same effect. Well, that's it for this devlog. If you want to see more constant updates, I invite you to follow me on that website right there. The link will be in the description. Thanks for watching, until next devlog, bye!